Okay, welcome to this week's episode of Kuden Radio, the podcast for what are we saying these days? For us, underwater basket weaver? No. Anyway, for all my serious warrior protectors and those who I don't know, hope to be, I guess. Anyway, let me start off by addressing a little comment that I saw the other day that time was not treating me well. I'm not sure what people expect, but that's on them. So anyway, time treats us all the same way. We'll all catch up, right? Anyway, right? So let's see. This is episode 239. Man, we're 11 episodes from 250. We have long since beaten the odds, right? So if you got a chance to listen to episode 200, I know it was a little bit long. Some people have dropped off. I had one friend send a message like, you guys are still on. Well, go take your nappy nap. Anyway, I think at the very beginning of that, so you don't have to listen too far in, we discussed statistics for podcasts. So James, thanks for enjoying this ride with me, because I think we're doing phenomenally well. Anyway, all right. So episode 239, and so we're gonna I would say revisit, but I always like for these episodes to stand on their own. But I will mention that we'll be revisiting a couple of topics that I speak on quite a bit. Right, that's kind of my forte. Not the speaking, the topic, but it's there, right? Anyway, so what I want to take a look at during this episode is the problem that we can often have by trying to pin things down to one right way, one official way. And this goes for self-defense training. It goes for kata. It goes for living our lives, right? And this is where we can get stuck, right? Whether we're talking about the elements or we're talking about different responsive states or anything like that. As much as people will often believe that, this is me, this is just the way I am, right? There's no changing it. No, that's not true. We have shifting emotional states and mental states throughout the day. And one of the things I really want to look at during this episode is how we often talk about these realms, these personality types. And it's another one of these things that's not so cut and dry. And so what I want to take a look at is how we can be confident and successful and sure of ourselves in, let's say, one area of our life, right? And in another one, be completely out of our element, or just not be doing well, right? And sometimes, I don't know, I've had students, and I've even experienced this myself, where sometimes it can even feel like we are completely different people in those situations, right? And of course, we'll draw on lessons from Ninpo and our Mikkyo and whatnot to see if we can't offer some suggestions and some tips for kind of reconciling those things. Okay, so I'll talk about that and more once we get started. But again, for those of you who are on early, welcome to episode 239, and let's go ahead and do this.
So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to Kuden Radio, real training for real.
All right, and we are back. So I see folks are getting signed in. That's awesome. But let's go ahead and start this. And so if you get a chance to see like the promotional slides or even the one that was up well, it's pretty much the same. Uh, when you first signed in, right? Uh, so the subhead is the direction of pretty much the meat of this episode, right? So Ninpo Insights for or dealing with success and struggle. Right? It's almost like a roller coaster ride kind of thing, right? But the main heading said total training. Right? What the hell's that all about? Well, um, again, there is this persistent. I'm going to use a couple of different words because different personality types, right? Desire, need, uh, uh, habit, those kind of things, to try to pin Ninjutsu into the martial arts bucket, right? If Ninjutsu were a square peg, we'd be trying to pound it into the star-shaped hole, the round hole, the anything but the square hole, right? And so, what I have learned, right, from Hatsumi Sensei and many of the teachers over the years, uh, is that all of the lineages have warriorship based lessons, and they all line up with things that are taught in Mikkyo. So when I say I'm burning the candle from both ends, I'm not kidding. But at the same time, you don't have to be doing that in particular, right? I mean, some people follow the Stoic path. Some people, like one of my friends and teachers, Jack Hoban, right, is he does more of a Socrates slash Plato kind of philosophy, those kind of things, right? Which is still in the Stoicism kind of direction, but ultimate truth is ultimate, so it's all the same. Anyway, what I'm pointing to with this is that martial artists or people that are martial arts minded, right, um, tend to want to gravitate in that direction. And other than self-defense and maybe a little bit on the side of personal development when it comes to like honor and respect and confidence and those kind of things, um, there's often uh, a problem with seeing how it relates to life itself, okay? And certain areas of our lives. And this is a huge mistake, right? In many of our lineages, Gyokoryu, specifically, since it forms the foundation for our Ninpo Taijutsu, or for our Budo Taijutsu within the Bujinkan. Um, Kotoryu also has this as well, but there's this tiger below, dragon above uh, kind of concept, right? If you've ever seen any of these scrolls, I know some of you guys have already heard this before because you're my you're my sticky boogers, right? You're here all the time. I mean that in the most loving way, right? But you're in all the time, so you're going to hear some of these things come up again. So I apologize, right? Have some patience, or maybe it'll be a reminder for you. But I have to make sure everybody's on the same proverbial sheet of music. So um, the scrolls that are often sold, you can find them in martial arts catalogs. You can find them in even novelty places and whatnot, where there's this, Chinese or Oriental looking scroll. And so what they have is this tiger down at the bottom of it, right? Often standing on a rock or a summit or something like that. And more often than not, there's a certain pose that this tiger takes up. Sometimes it's a little bit different, but generally speaking, it's in a certain pose from the tail all the way to the way the head looks up and around, right? And then above that, coming out of the clouds, is this dragon. And again, the shape, more often than not, is very specific. If you can kind of back up and soften your gaze a little bit, you might actually be able to see that curved S-shaped line that splits the inyo, that splits the omyo-do or the yin yang symbol. Right. And again, another way to kind of look at this, the Japanese statement, quote, shodo kind of thing. I have artwork somewhere in the dojo. I've got all kinds of stuff I need to get hung up. But Hatsumi Sensei had done this for me once. It was the theme of that particular year or part of the year. And the Japanese phrase is Ko Teki Ryoda. Ko Teki. Ko, tiger, Teki, below, beneath, under. It's not about something being beneath something else in like a hierarchical kind of thing. It's pointing to this thing, right? And then so Koteki Ryoda, right? So the tiger below, the dragon above. But again, it's this balance, and every time he's ever brought that up, he was making a point about the two sides to our training. The tiger represents the battlefield, the hard, what most people think of as martial techniques, right? Battlefield, back alley, those kind of things, right? The things that make martial artists all warm and fuzzy and get their nipples hard and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then the dragon, what about that? Well, the dragon represents society, represents grace and dignity and eloquence and I'd say respect, and I will, but that's not to mean that there isn't respect on the tiger side, okay? Because we even have statements about the warrior respects even his enemy or respects even his opponent. But there's certain nuances to that, right? And these things are related to the realm that we're talking about. Okay, so the dragon realm represents skills and abilities for being successful and or navigating or handling struggles in day-to-day life. Okay, so there are battles on in both realms. They just look different. Okay, they can both kill you physically, but see, one side is more about a physical death and not just sharpening the body and the mind and the spirit and whatnot for handling that kind of situation, that kind of state. It's not that that doesn't happen in the social realm, but in the social, cultural, familial, those kind of realms, often what ends up dying is our will, our sense of wonder, our ability to dream and visualize better states, right? Because we end up um, fall into March steps, so to speak, as we used to say in the military. And since I happen to be wearing one of my military T-shirts, um, the heart, the mind, right? Whether it's from complacency or it's from boredom or it's from resentment and having to follow somebody else's dictates or wants and needs and those kind of things. Right? It's still a battle, and the consequences are still pretty dire, right? Because from my perspective, I'd like to think it's a warrior perspective. I think it's easier to just get killed on a battlefield and have no worries than to live as a shadow of myself or my potential, right, in everyday life. So again, that's my take. You might have something different. I get it, but anyway. So what I want to do is over time, whether I don't know who's on at the moment, and I'll check here in a minute. But over time, different students or different folks have engaged with us in different ways. I've had some people just go through like the Mikkyo based, the Ninja Mind, those kind of programs where it's a life enhancing, personal empowerment kind of thing. Other people, pretty much just the martial side. Others, a much smaller group, um, are doing both. Okay? And that's fine too. But in either case, even in my martial arts, my self-defense classes, I will make references to different personality types and different needs. Right. Currently, I'm working on an article that will take a look at these 6 realms, these 6 personality types, 6 ways of being and processing the world that are found on the Tibetan Wheel of Life, which is a Mikkyo based graphic kind of way of showing that. I guess the mandala that I have is at the dojo, but you can look these things up. But as a part of that wheel, there's this outer ring, and then inside of that there are these 6 segments, and then there's an inner ring, and then an inner section itself. So it was kind of an early attempt at depicting and describing and understanding different personality types with different character traits, different ways of seeing the world, different ways of processing this experience, right? Called the human condition. Um, and it happens both inwardly and outwardly, right? But they make really good ways, or really good. It makes a good framework for, or expedient for, helping students to approach this idea that, like, not everybody sees things the way we do, but we don't even see things the way we do in different areas of our life or different times during the day. Okay, certain emotional states will cause us to filter things or process things a certain way. Um, the fulfillment of a dream or a want will cause us uh, to process things a certain way, right? Like if we want something, then we will focus predominantly on the positive, and any negatives we will gloss over or explain away. If somebody else tries to bring those up, we'll play the yeah but game, and we'll go about, because we really want that thing. When we want out of something, or we want to drop something, get rid of something, whatever, person, place, or thing, right? We tend to focus on the negative. And everything gets processed through that lens, right? All the problems, all the struggles, all the things that this person, place, or thing does that makes my life more difficult, whatever. And any of the positives, right? We're going to ignore, we're going to brush aside. Anyone who brings up, yeah, but look, all the things, and yeah, but see, this other thing is better, or things will be better if I can just jettison this thing, right? Uh, Again, person, place, or thing, get rid of it. We tend to filter things in that way, right? Now, knowing that we do that is more than half the battle, right? Being mindful that we do it when we're doing it, that's where the gold is, right? That's where the value really is, right? So, but my point is, over time, I have focused on, and I'll do it again this time because I need to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music. I've gone through these different elements, or these different realms, right, of being, and describe them in a certain way that people who are in this realm tend to be this way. But that's the introductory lesson. Right? The problem is that life is too dynamic for something that static. Right? So what we're going to do this time is we're going to take a look at. We'll start by taking a look at them, so we're all where we need to be. But we're going to take a look at how, right, these things are actually more like there's different layers of our lives. There's different conditions, different situations. Okay? So I'll jump into that as well. For those of you who remember, I have this analogy that I use. It's kind of like a deck of cards as it relates to the mandala. And so we'll take a look at that. But instead of doing it like I've typically done as an introduction, where we've gone to extremes to show how things kind of affect us, right? And affect how we tend to see things. What I want to do is I want to take a look at some of those layers that are really, really, really close together and how we can figuratively, literally, be different people in different places. And of course, I'll relate it to martial arts as well, because what's important is that we understand how this is working, um, regardless of what kind of situation or realm or part of our life or whatever that we're in. Because, um, one, this whole life thing, right, based on the way Hatsumi Sensei and these other master teachers have conveyed this stuff to me, is literally the other half of the training. Okay? It's not as glamorous or as uh, movie like, right? Where we get to be that kind of hero, as kicking somebody in the face or shooting their nuts off or whatever, right? The stuff that makes people in our realm feel all warm and fuzzy. It's not that, but since most of us are probably not in that realm on a day-to-day basis or even off and on throughout a given year, right? Again, one of the reasons why I wore this shirt today, this is it's my wrong side, right? Combat veteran t-shirt I got myself as a gift at one point, right? Symbol for anybody that's been in the Army. Right? Cross pistols are the symbol of the United States Army Military Police Corps. Right? I've had my time and I've had my moments. Okay. I no longer think that those things are glamorous. As a matter of fact, I don't watch war movies anymore. Haven't for a long time. But again, we in this realm tend to gravitate toward those things. But we in this realm are battling and in conflict in many different ways almost every day. We just can't punch the person in the throat without going to jail for it. Okay? So what ends up happening is we, in an attempt to become successful, an attempt to accomplish goals, an attempt to achieve certain things, and an attempt to control certain factors or our lives in general, to navigate or handle the struggles that are getting in the way of me living the kind of life I want to live. We're missing the skills, or we're missing. And this is something I've been trying to cover over the last, the previous 3 weeks in that kind of pocket. Missing again, if I go through different personality types, the desire, the belief that it's even important or anything, right? That this stuff has anything to do with life. Okay. So what I want to do during this one is take a look at this other half. Right. And take a look at a much more nuanced way of looking at these different realms. Call them emotional states, call them states of being, call them whatever you want. But how in a day-to-day situation that we could literally be moving to and from or being pulled to and from these different states, and how if we don't have the right skill sets, if we don't even know that we're supposed to have them, right? We're not going to be able to produce the results that we want to the degree that we want in areas where we are. And as much as this word is troublesome to martial artists and warrior protectors, because we're supposed to be the guy, the girl, right, that handles things, right? And in our own heads, we are. But where the rubber meets the road, well, we'll continue on with it here in a minute. So anyway, where's my guy? Where's James? Who do we have on? Who's on? Who's signed in? Who do I need to say hi to? There he is. Look at that little pop-up window.
Oh, looks like
You can drop down just a little bit so your nose is on line with the online Ninja Academy part. You could look like Kilroy was here. That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Yeah, see, cool. Excellent. Him and his, is that your mad dog in the background?
apparently.
Might actually quiet at the moment. Uh-oh. We've got a setting that's won't he? Did you see that? Yeah.
That was me. My track
That was you? Way to go.
pad.
All right, who's on?
Jeffrey,
Awesome. Hi, Jeffrey.
Merrill Barnett, Dave Fletch, Jimmy.
Awesome. I bet Jimmy posted Komawa
He did.
Daishihan, so I'll just get ahead of that one because it'll probably be not until tomorrow before I get a chance to answer all these things.
Dave said KIA or escaped and evaded, only two options.
Okay. Is that it? That's all we have?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring up my outline and we'll jump into this. And hopefully I can make it as clear as possible. Where are my notes? There we go. Okay, so a lot of you are familiar with this concept of the mandala, and I don't mean the damn coloring books that are so popular for, those adult coloring books where it just has these random patterns and whatnot, and you can sit around and use markers or crayons or whatever. I'm sure they're very nice. I'm just talking about ones that somebody didn't make up and then assign a meaning to it. I'm talking about these ones that are hundreds and hundreds of years old that are a representation of mind maps. Well, that's one way to look at them, I guess. But they're very much like a roadmap, except it's internally they're the enlightened view of potentials, connections, energies, those kind of things, and how things kind of happen or work with each other. In Tendai-mikkyo, we have two of these. In Shingon-mikkyo, there's two as well. Just between those two lineages, for those of you who know the Kongo-kai mandala, and for those of you who do, most of you probably, as far as the Kongo-kai mandala goes, you probably know it as the one that has the 9 blocks. And then each one kind of has this little microcosm in it that describes things. And again, it can be looked at from the inside and the outside. The Tendai version of that is just the middle block expanded to full size, because each of those schools come at that particular mandala differently. In each school, one of the two mandalas is seen as the primary, and then the other one is used to kind of fill in the gaps. So Shingon and Tendai tend to come with those two mandala from the opposite direction. You still end up getting everything anyway. But in the Taizokai mandala, that's the one with the 8-petaled red lotus in the middle. There's a big character there, and then there's a character on each of the 8 petals that go around. So that one is showing potentials, and it's showing what it's really pointing to is the more of those things that we can activate in our lives, the deeper our experience of this life will be, right? And also, they also can represent skill sets, whether they're mental, emotional, physical, they're life skills, right? And so the more of those things that we have active, the more of those personal character traits that we have, then the more different types of situations we're going to be able to successfully navigate, the more struggles we'll be able to handle, because we can see kind of karmic connections and whatnot between things, and be able to navigate them, right? Be able to handle them, be able to see them coming ahead of time. Now, based on physiological makeup, right, our biology, there are some things that are on the mandala that we may not be able to. We may not be able to. It's not a potential for us. Okay. For example, there is a character on the hall just above that big square with the 8-petaled lotus, the 9 figures. In that hall, there is a character that represents motherhood, and I mean like biological motherhood. Right. I'm not going to be. I can't live to that potential this time around because I don't have the parts. Not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. Okay. And that's just not a thing. Now, there's another character that represents somebody who raises and nurtures a child, but was not the biological mother of that child. Okay. Men can be nurturing and things like that. They can fill that role, but it's going to be easier for a woman like my wife, who has helped raise my children, right, as her stepchildren, just like I've helped to raise. So there's certain ones that are just going to be easier to live to. There's other ones that are like a universal concept or a potential that is an external. So it's not about living to it. It's about connecting with it and understanding it. Right? It's kind of on a primordial level, right? Like love and those kind of things. They've always been around, right? So anyway, so that is a manifestation kind of thing and potentials and whatnot. And then you have all this other dynamic stuff going on over on the Kongokai side, right? And how things interrelate and affect each other and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's a very different kind of approach, but it's two ways of seeing the same thing. Okay, so anyway, one of the things that I kind of use as an expedient to help students understand things and to break a need or a tendency to see those things as static because, well, it's a painted picture, right? Here's this thing, right? I mean, if I just memorize all the characters on here and what they mean, then I'll be enlightened, right? Yeah, no, see, because that's what, ego wants the shortcut, okay? But that's no different than the tendency to see a kata as this fixed official thing instead of an introduction to concepts. Okay. I just had a couple of students in class tonight. James was there, and one of my newer guys, even though he's new to Budo Taijutsu, to ninjutsu and whatnot, he's been in the martial arts since he was in his teens, and he's a retired corrections officer. So he's been in the shit, right? Former Marine, all that. But one of the things that I don't think it throws him. I think that he really sees as something he needs to get, right? But the problematic side to it is that he's been conditioned to be tense and to exert power and those kind of things, and it kind of gets in the way. And trying to get the head wrapped around, right? Is it this form? Is it this form? Which one is the right one? Which one's the official one? Okay? So what we were discussing tonight in class was that as the kata as a place to start, what a lot of people miss if they don't change their environment, if they don't change the perspective, and this is not about a right or wrong perspective, it's a changing the experience perspective. For instance, and James brought this up, right now we're, I know it's not December 20th or 21st, but most people are their heads wrapped around it's wintertime, right? So it's it's cold, uh, and what that means is that there are layers of clothing, and the clothing is changing, right? So there's more layers, the type of clothing, the thickness, there's padding to it, um, everything, even down to like work gloves and whatever, right? So uh, whether he's wearing it and I'm not, or I'm wearing it and he's not, or whatever, right? Um, we now have to look at that kata in a different light. Okay? And this is something that the mandala show as well. We have to look at this from the perspective of which uke nagash or type of uchi uke um, do I have to use based on now what we're wearing, what targets, those kind of things that still do the same thing that the kata is pointing to, because ultimately the kata is a strategic model. It The kata teach strategic thinking, right? Within the Bujinkan, my best estimation, I haven't sat down with the math or anything, but 70%, right, of all techniques start the same way. Uketsuki or tries to grab or whatever, and we uke nagash or uke uch, whatever, and then we XYZ. So they all start the same way, where you're receiving and neutralizing the force of the enemy's attack, and then you're guiding it to a certain resolution, to a certain outcome, right? He's going to be taken down or cut down in place or whatever, a very specific way. Okay? So if we're just looking at memorizing kata, then we're missing the fact that these are not things that are applicable in every situation, right? If we change the condition of the ground surface that we're on relative to the shoes or not shoes or whatever that we're wearing, right? How does the kata have to be adjusted, right? All of these things, okay? So I mention this because this is important when it comes to understanding this full thing, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to peel away the physical example of the principles and concepts that are being taught or being conveyed by that physical example. Okay? Um, in Mikkyo, we would say that the kata is what the combat principles look like under given conditions. Right. So from a Taizokai perspective, right, where it was all those potentials and connections and things like that, right? What we have is the kata showing how basics can be strung together in a logical flow against a certain attack or against a certain type of person in a given context to produce an end result, right? And then we apply the Kyonapo principle and make variations of these, but the whole idea is to be able to understand the connections and then to be able to reproduce them. Okay, so the Taizokai mandala is like the kata. Okay, um, there's an essential nature to it, right? These principles and concepts, this science that we're using. Um, but it really goes down to the cause and effect and how these things come across. But by working through those things, we come to an understanding about the principles and concepts that make things what they are, right? Everything ultimately is, any kata has the potential to be just that perfect technique that is going to win this thing, or it's the ideal that was passed down as a training model. But it could also be kind of in the ballpark, or it could need adjusting because of certain elements or conditions, right? Where the Kongokai represents um, what you're ultimately going to have to do to survive a bad situation, right? So, for a lot of people, I'm going to keep this really really simple. What sparring points to, but it ultimately it's you're going to do what you need to do based on what he's doing, what you think you can do in that moment, based on the skill sets you have and whatnot, how you apply them in the context, all the driving factors and whatnot, right? Because a civilian is under certain constraints and limitations legally that are different than a police officer or a professional security person, and that's different than the soldier on the battlefield who's has heavy artillery falling around them and bullets flying everywhere. Okay, so again, there's these nuances, right? But the Kongokai represents ultimate truth, and that is you're going to do whatever you need to do. The Taizokai represents here's this expert, here these expert role models. Here's how an expert would do it, given these lineages and given the principles and concepts that are being conveyed. Here are some models and examples about how a master would do it, or how an expert in this from this particular school would do things, right? And then somewhere in the middle, right between these two, right, what we have is we're going to do the best we can with what we have, but that is going to be highly affected by our level of understanding and how much time and effort and practice and whatnot we have in those masters or experts lessons. Okay. But there are all these potentials, there are all these possibilities. Okay. So anyway, let me just kind of jump in here. So again, the foundation is with these mandala. All right. But if you've seen them, and you can look these things up. I mean, you can do a simple Google search on images and look up Taizo Kai, Taizokai, right? Mandala, Kongo Kai, Kongokai, or you can look up the Tibetan versions, right? I have one over here, the Vishvavajra, or the this is a one for success, right? I have another one. I think it's in the dojo. It may be just another piece of artwork that didn't make it up after the fire, or back up after the fire, and it's one for peace and those kind of things, right? So there's just these different mandala. They're more similar to the Kongokai than they are to the Taizokai. The Tibetan Wheel of Life is a mandala, right? You can look up that as well. But there's a structure and a layout, and what you have are these lessons being conveyed in graphical form. Just like in the martial arts, you have lessons being conveyed in physical movement form. Right? So, but again, people tend to look at these things as a two-dimensional, here's this thing, right? I just memorize these things and learn how it works, and it's all good. Again, for those of you who've been on for a lesson like this in the past, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to have to repeat myself for the folks that didn't catch this one or didn't catch the first time around. So the mandala is more like a deck of cards. Okay. And what I mean by that is they're layers. Each of those layers represents a certain aspect or area of our life or of ourselves, and the relationships that make things what they are. Okay. But the reason that most people miss that it's like a deck of cards is because the mandala is presented to you as if you were already enlightened. If your perspective on the mandala was looking straight down at that top card, all you can see is one card. But your hanya, your prajna, your insight, right? Your knowledge is there's all this stuff below it. Now, they all look pretty much the same. Now there are changes and dynamics and things like that. This is not a Mikkyo class, so I'm not going into that. But just like all faces on all the cards are different, and they all have a different value or reference or whatever, not just based on the deck of cards, but based on the game you're playing. Right? Is an ace a 1, or is it an 11, or is it a bad card? Right? Um, hearts, right? Are they top suit, or are spades top suit, or is it something else? Again, see, the game dictates, right, how this relationship as well. But either way, there's this reference. Okay, so when we think about who we are and how we are, um, often it can just seem like, well, this is just how I am, right? This is like I came out of the womb this way, and I was just destined to be this kind of person, right? Which is how people tend to translate karma, fate, destiny, other bullshit translations. Um, Karma itself just means action, right? And it implies cause and effect. Okay, so there's interdependence, all that kind of stuff going on. So, but when we look at these, what we need to understand is that we are what and who we are based on a lot of influences. Okay? Everything from familial, genetic kind of stuff's coming up. So that's a card way down at the bottom, right? And then familial, right? Um, Interactions and knowledge about grandparents and or great grandparents, interactions with parents, interactions with siblings, interactions with cousins. Those, see, that it's closer, right, to kind of a, we'll call it a center card, right? Friends we've had over time, jobs we've had over time, uh, struggles we've had over time, successes we've had over time, uh, given teachers at a given grade who taught the particular subject we were going through their way, right? From a top down perspective, we have society and cultural kind of things, which are themselves synthesized and evolved from previous ones. Okay. And so we've got this other thing going on, right? Coming at it. And things will start to cross over again with family and siblings and all that kind of stuff, friends and whatnot, but it's coming at it from a much bigger cultural kind of thing. Like in our culture here in the States, I can use terms like, or I can use phrases like, man, he's a real Einstein. Okay. Now that might be global for a lot of folks in the Western world, right? Or I could say, man, she's a real Madame Curie, right? And some people will get it, but most people who get that know that what I'm referencing is they're a freaking genius. Okay, they're really, really smart, right? Or if I say, that person is a real MacGyver, or it's like James Bond, whatever, right? They know what I'm hinting at is that, give them a hammer, a raw egg, and some duct tape, and they'll make an airplane, and they can get themselves out of anything. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring that up at the upcoming Daikomyo side. There's a weapon we're going to be working with that I don't think people understand its nuances, because often, whether it's kata or weapons or whatever in Ninjutsu, things are often given names that have a much more expanded meaning, as in the meaning of the kanji or the name that it's given um, doesn't make sense because it's not describing that particular item, right? It's a name, kind of like kunoichi for female ninja. There's no such word in the Japanese language. I mean, I guess we could split hairs and say there is now, but historically there wasn't. Right? It was the way that kanji for woman was broken down into kana strokes and laid out, and that was just pronounced then. So if they were talking about a female operative, you wouldn't have ninja woman in kanji, right? The Kyoketsu Shoge, secret weapon of the Gyoko-ryu, Togakure-Ryu, this hook dagger with this really, really long rope, usually braided from horses, like uh, the hair from horse's mane or tail, or women's hair, because of the strength and resiliency, and then this heavy weight at the end of it, right? Kyoketsu Shoge means to run around the fields and mountains. The hell, right? What is that even talking about? Okay, so there's one we're going to specifically focus on that points right back to a character trait that a ninja is absolutely required to have, right? Um, to be even considered to be in that realm. Pretty interesting stuff. So anyway, so again, what I'm looking at here, what I've covered in the past is this, past and social umbrella kind of effect on who we are and how we operate. But what I want to do is I want to bring things in tighter. Okay. So if we were to only pull out a couple, let's say 5 or 6 cards out of the middle that are really, really close to me, and they represent my day to day. Okay. Things are going to be a little bit different. Okay. So while we could look at this from the perspective of either mandala, the structure, these 6 realms that we have that are much more easily depicted on the Tibetan Wheel of Life, they're a little bit harder to see, but the way they're laid out on the Kongokai mandala, right? They're there. But the relationships we're going to look at, for those of you in my Mikkyo training, they're definitely more. The approach I'm taking is definitely more of a Taizokai relationship kind of thing. But don't worry about those names. Don't worry about those references. I'm just kind of helping those students that are going through that to kind of reconcile this, right? But so let's. What I want to do is I want to take a look at this idea of this experience of success and struggle from the perspective that maybe we're not always in the same realm. We don't always operate from the same. When I say personality type, I mean the same way of looking at the world, the same way of making choices, the same way of relating to other people or whatever. Okay. And if we could just step back for a minute and recognize that when we're pissed off, whether we want to or not, there's an edge to things. People can feel that. And we tend to think about ourselves, think about others, make decisions and whatnot very differently from when we're just the opposite, right? We're just like ecstatic. We're waiting for something really cool to happen, or something cool just did happen, right? And how that's different from when we're just here, just kind of neutral. Okay? So a way to kind of look at this is, let's say we're confident at work, but at home we're in a state of overwhelm, right? Because of all the responsibilities and that kind of stuff going on, or vice versa, right? So then that's just 2 examples, right? So if each of these cards, okay, represented a day-to-day realm, okay, a day-to-day experiential kind of reference point, right? So family, as in like our primary home family, extended family and friends, workplace, job, profession, whatever, right? Martial arts practice, and let's say personal development work. That's 5. Okay. There are different references, right? When we're interacting with our parents, depending on our age, because I'm now at an age where, and my wife as well, my mother-in-law is battling with early to mid stages of dementia. So we just had to put her into a nursing home, right? Because it became too much to try to handle the day-to-day kind of things. I mean, we don't have a house where she can't just walk out, because houses are, and the locks in houses are designed to keep people from coming in from the outside. She can wander off, right? My mom, right, will be 84 on Wednesday. Now she's more mentally lucid, but physically she's exactly the opposite of my mother-in-law, who can get up, sit down, walk around, pretty nimble and spry and all that. It's just the opposite, right? But again, depending on age and caregiver status and things like that, right? Um, there's probably, again, I can't speak for your relationship with parents and whatnot, but there's probably some air of respect because it's still a child adult or child, not child adult, child parent relationship. Because child adult that are not connected that way, right? The respect is different. Okay? I know we have created a culture where sometimes it's non-existent because we have a fuck you attitude. We don't as martial artists, at least I hope so, since it's our first line of self-protection. But you do you, I'll do me. So there's still that thing, but my wife and I have found that there are more on her side than my side at the moment. There are times when we have to, the roles almost flip. There's still the air of that's my mom, but mom is not taking care of herself. And so I almost have to become the parent to make sure that they're doing what needs to be done. And I'm nurturing and those kind of things. There's certain qualities, right? So again, in different places, right? So so what I really want to do is I want to introduce this idea, right, that human experience, right, is multifaceted and it's influenced by, in Mikkyo we call them realms, but in modern psychology we would probably call it mental or emotional states, okay, based on all kinds of factors. Okay, so again, in Mikkyo study, philosophy, those kind of things, right? We have these 6 realms that describe, or 6 ways, no, 6 realms that describe 6 ways of experiencing and responding to life, right? Each of these things is shaped by our emotions, our beliefs, our habits, our education, all those kind of things, right? So what we can do is we can think of them as psychological mindsets or states of being, right, that influence how we act, what we pursue, the way we think about things, the value that we assess or that we assign to different things, different people, different experiences, likes, dislikes, all those kind of things, right? So where we are confident, we're going to act, think, speak, plan, and do very differently from those situations where we feel like we're out of our depth or we're struggling to maintain some kind of control. But whatever our belief system is or whatever we think should be going on, and we act in accordance with those beliefs, we're not producing the results that we want to be producing or that we know we should be or whatever. And this goes just as much on the martial arts floor, right, interacting with fellow students and the teacher and whatnot and the lessons, as it does getting the job done at work, or whether we think that our job or any job sucks, or whether we like it or we see ourselves as an important and integral part of the success of that thing or whatever. Okay. I was having a conversation with James before we actually started this stuff, and I was relaying how after we had gotten a bunch of things moved from my mother-in-law on Saturday, my wife and I went to lunch, and we went to this restaurant we don't go to that often because it's good 20 minutes, half an hour away, but because that's where the nursing center is that my mother-in-law is now. It was really close, so we decided we'd go there for lunch. And from the interaction with the hostess, things didn't get much better. So the food is great, but the service is at best mediocre. from her, which is the first face and interaction you have with that establishment, yeah, it started out not so great, as in me grinding my molars a little bit and having thoughts that I should not carry out as a civilized human being against somebody who's not armed with a sword. But what I was describing with James was how this really relates to what we're looking at tonight, because this person obviously did not want to be working, and probably they don't want to work any job. So why are they? When in our society, it's really easy to come up with a story and go to an office and fill out some forms and get free money, get free benefits. So why doesn't she? Probably because, as a part of her makeup as well, right? See, we have the job work relationship, but we also have the my priorities relationship with life and friends and what I want to be doing or what I'd rather be doing. Okay. I'm sure we can all associate with these at whatever level we do. So these things are in conflict with each other. Okay. And since this person is not mindful of the realm that they're in and how to control themselves so that their emotional mental state produces success at the level that they should be producing it, to have less struggle, less conflict, less negative emotions and whatever while it's going on, right? Because they'd really rather be somewhere else, or they're doing this thing begrudgingly. The problem that causes this person, out of who knows, laziness, different priorities, whatever, to continue to work is they probably also have a sense of there's a stigma about what other people would think of them if they were on welfare, if they were getting a free check. Okay. So there's this conflict, right? And so there's also this other relationship. And because I've only seen them in one context, I'd have to see them in relationship to strangers when they're out, when they're driving, when they're, out shopping or whatever, and they're around other human beings that they're not connected to, own nothing to, and can't get anything from. Okay. And I don't make assumptions. So, but the way they treat the customer when they come in, okay, one doesn't have to believe the thing that they're doing. Like, I don't have to like kids' cartoon movies. But when I've sat and watched these things with my children, and now with my grandson, I don't have to be into the movie to the degree that he is. I don't even have to be into it at all. But I'm going to be interacting with him. Because I'm not there because I like the movie. I'm there because he likes the movie, and I want us to have bonding time. It's not about me. Just like it's not about her when she's providing customer service, or any of us. If I don't work for anybody else, but if I were on the job and interacting with coworkers to make sure that everybody's acting, working efficiently and effectively and whatnot, and I'm not the cause of struggle or strife or conflict, which is going to diminish effectiveness and potentially cause errors and those kind of things, right? So in that case, it's not about me. It's about the mission being accomplished. Okay? But probably most of us weren't raised, I know I wasn't, by enlightened warriors who explain things this way. So, but what I'm trying to do with this lesson is to help in understanding why we may not be producing the results that we're producing. Okay. So again, just using this one example from this hostess on Saturday, right? We have two areas of life or two sets of beliefs about, right? Ultimately, it's her, but we've got personal views about work affecting work, but we also have personal views about other people and how it's okay to treat them, right? Personal views about ourselves and what we believe that to be in relationship to other people that we're not connected to. That affects treatment, that affects all kinds of things, right? So, and then how that can be at odds with, well, if you don't like people and you don't like working, why the hell are you in the food service industry or customer service industry, and or have a job at all? Well, that's probably running into conflicts with other things. Okay, so no thing doesn't matter is one of the phrases that we use, but um, it's it's something that we need to look at, right? If we're serious about resolving the struggle and achieving the success in whatever area. Okay? Now, before I move on with this, I'm gonna make a suggestion that since you didn't have the same experience I did with somebody else on Saturday, I'm going to keep bringing this back to martial arts because that's the realm that most of you are signing into this from. How is uh, work and or relationships, uh, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, and our belief about ourselves and our belief about the complexity or the right way, wrong way, whatever, to do the martial arts or to practice what we're supposed to be practicing, or the difficulty to get back in. The reason, I'm going to use the word reasons instead of excuses, that we use for doing or not doing things on a regular basis, right? How might we be in conflict with ourselves or the type of person, the type of me, right, that I'm being in these different realms? How might that uh, be affecting the level or degree of success that I'm achieving? And this is not me on a pedestal, because I got plenty of this stuff to work on for myself, but also the types and degree of struggles, right, and problems and whatnot that we're having. Okay, because ego will explain all this stuff away, right, to make us right, to explain away why we're victims of the struggle, why we don't have the level of success, whatever. Okay. So ultimately, this is stuff that we have to work out for ourselves. And this is actually a part of the Seishin Teki Kyoyo, personal clarity, personal development, spiritual refinement. Pick a translation because it doesn't translate easily in English. The strength and resiliency and things like that, that leads off the list of 18 study areas in the Togakure school. That has to be dealt with first. So we end up having those traits, the strength, the resiliency, the adaptability, flexibility, those kind of things, to do the rest of the training. Okay. So let me just flip back over here. James, do we have any questions or comments that have come in so far before I jump into the next part?
Just Trinity jumped on, said hello, and excuse me. I think a lot of it comes from a lack of education on how to, quote, quietly self-regulate. In that moment, all she knows is herself and may not even realize how her bubble clashes with others.
Exactly. No, that's perfect. I was hoping she was on because I was going to ask. Trinity did a phenomenal breakout session during fall camp, and I may have her do another one here for the next one coming up. But where she took the three mysteries, what you guys know as the Sanmitsu, the triple secrets of success, and looked at those both through the traditional lens that most people within the training in Ninpo and in Mikkyo get them, and then looked at them in light of modern psychology. Really cool stuff. Good stuff. So I'm glad that you threw that out there, because if we're not aware that these things are happening, or we believe that we don't have any control over them, then there's nothing we can do about them. Right. And so we're right. Okay. Now, it's different when we know and we turn a blind eye, right? Because other factors, drives, needs, whatever, right, drive us to be right. Right? And that can lead to all kinds of weird things, gaslighting, all kinds of stuff, so that ego can maintain its superiority. Or we know, but we choose to not be mindful because it hurts to see that I might be like all these other people that are, that I'm pissed off at on a regular basis because they're not paying attention, right? Or we are mindful and we are aware, right? And but we may not know to what degree. So we have to go through an exploring stage first to ferret these things out, and then we can start putting things together. Okay? So the way the mandala are looked at, there's actually two aspects. One is easy to understand. The other one takes a little bit of insight. Uh, I talked about the perspective on the mandala. Like if your perspective is enlightened and, so to speak, dead on, right, you're going to see one mandala, right? So, but it's not that easy, because you could understand all these things on here, which is one side of the training, right? This represents this. This represents da, da, da. You can map that stuff out, right? That's the left brain intellect stuff, right? But if my personality or my chosen way to view the world is from one specific direction, let's say I'm way over in the wind realm, okay, and these things are laid out as uh, five circles, right, in within this realm, okay, and so I understand them, cool, right? I understand how they fit together, all that kind of stuff. One axis is the way we view the world, one axis is the way we operate or act in the world, right? But I'm an extreme wind personality, right? um, I don't engage in conflict. I don't, I'll tell somebody off in my head, but I'm not going to tell them to their face, kind of thing. Whatever, right? So I'm way over here. I'm not seeing five circles of the same diameter, right? This thing's laid out this way away from me. So now these things have a kind of an odd shape to them. Think notebook paper, that three-hole notebook paper that goes in a three-ring binder. When the paper's stacked and squared, and you get right up over one of those holes and you look straight down, you see one hole. But if you vary that, you now start to see not only the sides of all the holes in all the sheets of paper, but now you don't see a circle. You could see everything all the way down to a thin slit, if anything at all, right? So we could learn all this stuff, but again, because of fears, needs, unmet expectations, whatever, we choose to always look at things from a certain direction because that's the only right way. Well, then that knowledge is always going to be skewed. Okay? And again, it's not that there's not a right way or a wrong way. Right? There is, but it's not based on personal preference. Right? It's based on having a broad skill set. It's kind of like having a toolbox. If I only have a couple of tools, right, I'm going to have to jerry rig things, or you know come up with, somebody give me a butter knife, whatever, right? Um, because I don't have the particular, the specific tool for that, right? That's just the opposite. Somebody just buys a shit ton of tools, right? Because you never know when you might need it. Yeah, but you never bothered to learn how to use it. So now I need it. Here's the problem, but I'm either going to screw things up because I'm using it incorrectly, or I have to spend a whole lot of time. Luckily, in today's world, right, we can Google it, and now I've just wasted a whole bunch of time. Meanwhile, the the broken pipe is spewing water all over the place and causing major damage in other areas. Right? So again, just an analogy. I mean, so Trent, thanks for that. What else do we have, James? Anybody else?
She also said self-awareness is both the easiest and hardest answer to all of our problems.
Yeah, it's like those bumper stickers. Blank is the answer. We've all seen them, right? Or you can always, not always, you can read into a part of anybody's personality type by looking at fixed things like bumper stickers that they put in their car and stuff like that, right? You talked about those tonight too, but I'm not going to go into those. I've seen far too many people that lean into a certain personality type, just break laws and inconvenience other people and whatnot because they're the smart one, they're the righteous one, they're the one on the side of good, and whatever. Okay. Anyway, so cool beans. All right, so let me jump into the next part of this. We'll just keep on keeping on. Okay, so first thing I want to take a look at here is, again, very quickly, mapping the 6 realms as mindsets. And again, these are very, very paraphrased, right? This is not a Mikkyo specific class. We're just using these as a way to look at, generally speaking, 6 different mindsets, emotional states, perspectives, those kind of things. Okay. And so the way I lay these things out is the way I've typically always done it, but I'm seeing that there's just a lot of confusion with folks because the questions I'm getting back or the interactions I'm having is like, I think I'm this kind of person, right? And so, this is the way I typically operate, but then I find myself doing this. And so how is that even possible? Well, we can't just look at how we are when things are going well. What realm or emotional state or mental state do we default to when things are not going well? And is that the same in all realms? Is it the same in my relationship with my partner? Is it the same in my relationship with any given friend? Is it the same at work? Is it this? Probably not. Okay. So what we can do is we can use these things as hints and clues, and we can also borrow positive success traits from certain areas and apply them to other realms in our life where we're experiencing the struggle, whether it's getting to class or being able to commit to things. It's amazing how we can commit to some things and not commit to others. But generally speaking, if somebody says, or if you're taking a survey, right? Do you find it easy to commit to things, completely, right? We'll look at those things that we can and answer yes. Okay. But meanwhile, in other areas of our lives, and if you're not sure, ask the people that know you really well. But most people won't because, in the words of Reverend Jikai, before he even accepted me as a personal student, do you really want to know truth? What that means is, do you really want to know what everybody thinks of you or different people think of you? Okay. And do you really want to know that the people that think of you the way you want to think of you, right, are probably very similar to you in those areas? Okay. I have friends that we probably couldn't work together, right, because our work ethic is different, but they're friends in other areas, right? So knowing that little piece of information causes me to not have to suffer the struggle of working with that person. Now, would they help me with a project or something, and I could trust that they will help me get it done? Yes. Okay. Because a couple of them would be the first to remind me, you asked me for my help in getting this done. You didn't ask for my help in getting it done well. See, knowing that's a really important piece of information. If I need something done and done quickly, as long as the mission gets accomplished, but I might get some shit scratched or broken or whatever, I can call them. If I'm moving some fragile stuff and things that I really care about and I want care taken, I have to call somebody else. Okay. This keeps us from going through life vaguely. Okay. So again, for each realm, right? What we're going to do is I'm going to reframe the description just slightly, so that we connect it to relatable emotions or behaviors or whatever. Okay. Because the names themselves are going to sound a little bit weird, especially if this is your first time, right? Because we're going to be talking about the God realm, the jealous gods, or the battling titans realm. Human realm is going to sound pretty simple, right? But hungry ghosts, whatever. Okay. That's going to sound a little odd. So we're going to keep it really, really simple, but we want to look at these things as emotional, psychological. I usually, what the term I use for my Mikkyo students is psycho-emotional behaviors or processing. Okay, just like I mentioned earlier, when we're just absolutely pissed off, right? We're processing things very, very differently than when we're happy, than when we're sad or grieving, than when we are I'm just here, man. You know, how do you feel? Just here. Oh, I'm sorry, things aren't going well. Things are fine. I'm just here, right? I'm not being pulled in either direction, right? And I don't have a problem being neutral, because I long since have gotten past the need for ego gratification or ego needing to be entertained all the time. Okay. And I now understand Reverend Jikai's lesson that I would rather be alone than to be with somebody who makes me wish I was. And that goes for anybody. Because my state is more important to me, so that I can be calm and rational as I'm processing things. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy things. I enjoy lots of things. And I can swing in all emotional states, typically by choice. Anyway, so let's take a look at these things very, very quickly. And we'll also relate them to martial arts or self-defense as we go through things here. Okay. Because there's this article that I'm writing about these different personality types or these different general perspectives on life in the world. But in this case, I'm turning these things on the martial arts. So why would any of these realms or states of being, why would anybody in these personality types or whatever be attracted to, avoid, or be repelled by martial arts training? Okay. Why would they quit? Why would they engage more fully? Okay. This is important for instructors, because we have to remember first and foremost that the people that come to you for training aren't you. Okay. So understanding what motivates them, one personality type is going to think that I'm patronizing somebody else to keep them from quitting. But that person is perceiving it as getting exactly what they need. And so, yeah, class is cool. This training is good. I'll stick around. Because the reality is that as an instructor, I need to give students what they need or what they want to keep them around long enough so that they learn what they need. But if I do that backwards, I'll always be teaching only a couple of people at a time, and the faces will change a lot. What about the ones I got? Like these 2 students have been with me for like 10 years. Great. They're either just like you or they will train no matter what, right? If your dojo closed or whatever, and you said, we got to train in that porta potty over there, they would still train because it's not about you. It's about the training. Okay. Anyway, so let's run down through these things very, very quickly, right? So God realm. Okay. So the God realm is generally the personality, or it's that moment in our life, or whatever that realm we're in. Okay. I'm only going to say this once. Remember that as I go through these other ones. Okay. This is the person that thinks they have all their shit together. Okay. If you told them something, about, let's say, have you ever thought about taking martial arts for self-defense or whatever? And they go, why would I? Well, aren't you worried about being attacked? No. Why would anybody attack me? Okay? So it's a state of overconfidence or complacency, okay, due to a level of comfort, a level of success, okay? Those kind of things, right? If somebody thinks that they're at a certain level that, they're like a Teflon Don, nobody would even think about doing anything to me, right? I'll sue them. I'll call the cops. I'll, whatever. Okay. Everybody, all these personality types have their own thing that produces this state of overconfidence or complacency. Okay. A lot of people who want to get back in training and a lot of people who want to begin training, right, for quote unquote self-defense reasons or whatever, right, won't. Okay. Or they'll peck at it. Why? Because where they live and their everything from their neighborhood to work or whatever, they don't have an imperative reason. Okay. Because they're comfortable. Okay. They're already at a level of success. Okay. They may own firearms or weapons, or they may have had some training and developed a level of confidence. I've had people quit after earning their first belt. I think I learned everything I need to. And this is their exit statement, right? Yeah, I think I've learned everything I need to handle a situation now. Dude, you have no idea how many training wheels were wrapped around those techniques that you learned. But see, when they came in, they said they were training for self-defense. When really, during their exit statement, still referencing self-defense, what they reference is a level of confidence that's different. Okay? So sometimes we don't even know what the hell it is that we're looking for. But so again, the comfort, success, that kind of thing. And so this leads to a lack of urgency or effort in preparation or actually taking action, right? Because they don't really feel like they need it, right? It's a want more than a need. And the want and the need are really wrapped around other things: self-perception, self-value, the way other people perceive me. This is different for all of the different realms. But in this case, from a God realm perspective, what's creating that overconfidence? What makes somebody stop practicing a technique that they still suck at? What makes somebody continue to train with a technique that they already have down? Right? Very different, right? And of course, we as each individual, we, I, me, ego, is always right to itself and based on its own standards and reference points. Okay. Anyway, so God realm, jealous gods in Sanskrit. This is known as the Ashura, the battling titans. Okay. So generally speaking, this is a personality type that is seeking perfection, but already has a lot going for it, right? A lot going for him, her, whatever. Okay. As a matter of fact, other people would probably look at them and go, wow, holy shit. Okay. Except that they are constantly seeing other people that have more, are faster, stronger, whatever, and so they're driven by uh, competitiveness, a drive to win, a drive to be seen as being better than everybody else, right? So in the martial arts world, uh, the sport focused martial arts, right, really pull these people in. And even if somebody's not in a sport martial art, right, they're being driven by, we'll call it professional rivalries. People in the same art, same rank, or whatever, they're always gauging where they are relative to somebody else because they need to be, you know, in the number one position or whatever. Now, this being said, from an enlightened standpoint, from a well-rounded wholeness, total training standpoint, none of these are better than the other ones, and none of these are worse than the other ones. The point of proper training is to be able to operate in all of them because all of them are contextual and conditional based on the situation, problem, or experience. Okay. Recognizing where you are and whether or not that's the right place to be, because those strengths are necessary. Okay. As in, from a God realm personality, okay, an instructor should never sound like they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So they should seem confident. And some personality types are probably going to look at it as overconfident or whatever, but they're there, right? But there's also a lot of martial arts instructors that are in a complacency mode because they already know. So long ago, they stopped training. And what they don't see from this level of comfort is that their students are catching up to them and will begin to see flaws or begin to realize that they can't get anything more from that teacher. But see, from a God realm personality, the student should always stay because of loyalty. But if you have a student who's loyal to their own training and learning as much as possible, that student will outgrow the teacher. And see, there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at these things because anyone could be knocked down. So there's certain realms that are seen as positive or auspicious, right? They're good, right? Because you get a comfortable kind of state, right? And then there are other ones not so good, right? So God realm person could be knocked down into a hell realm kind of thing because of anger or defensiveness or anyway, I'll talk about that here shortly, right? So again, jealous gods, that kind of thing, right? So we're driven by competitiveness or whatever, okay? That could be a reason that somebody gets involved. That could be a reason that somebody sticks around. If you know your own tendencies and that tends to be your drive, then even if you're in a non-competitive martial art like ninjutsu, right, you could create little games or whatever and set up a self competition. It's certainly more healthy than seeing yourself relative to all the other your fellow students and whatnot, and competing with them, because whether we know it or not, they or others will pick up on that and how it's affecting your interactions with them. You could find yourself alienating yourself from those who could really help you. Anyway, I say you as a general thing because you guys are all enlightened. I'm just giving you the information. Okay. All right. So next one is the human realm. From the mandala and the training's perspective, this is the only realm from which one can attain enlightenment, because this is a mindset of self-improvement. It is one of ambition. It's a person who seeks to learn, grow, and refine themselves, their life, their condition, those kind of things, right? So that, generally speaking, this is the realm that we're in when we're actually doing the work, right? Or we're in this realm if this is our default, where we're assessing and analyzing things and learning constantly, right, from the conditions and situations that we're in. Okay. Now, if we're judging and assessing um, to, you know, these people are assholes and people don't know and whatever, right? Well, then we're in the jealous gods realm, right? Because it's competitiveness, the drive to win, right? The belief and need to be better than everybody else. Not that's a bad thing, right? Because ambition can lead to that thing. And there might be times when, right? Well, in my academy, from my perspective, right? Well, students could learn something from any martial art or any instructor in the area, right? Um, I think that our approach and my experience that backs that up and whatnot um, is going to give them a better edge. So, right, even though everybody's going to do things based on their preferences and whatnot, I'm going to do my utmost to make the academy and the program um, as attractive as possible to as many personality types as possible, because I'd rather have them training with us than, Kim's Tic Tac Toe. Right? We don't have anybody around named that, but you get the idea. Okay. So there is an edge to the competitiveness, because if I'm not communicating what we do in a way, in the best way, that a student who's looking for this particular type of thing, and I don't mean ninjutsu, I mean, their mom or dad or whatever who's looking to really protect their family, and they're very clued in about the kind of dangers that are out there in the world and whatnot. They do not want to be a fighter. They don't want to be doing things for trophies or belts or whatever. If I do not do that in the best way possible and consistently keep that word out, they're going to go train with somebody else. And then they could get hurt, or they could be uber confident in this thing that really wasn't, it's presented to be, but then they get, their ass handed to them if and when they ever get attacked, or they end up worse yet, they quit and they decide that martial arts or self-defense is not for them. They're not cut out for it because the program they went to was not conducive to a normal, middle-aged adult learning curve. So anyway, right. So that's the human realm. Then the realm of the hungry ghosts, right? This is a personality who wants to do things, would love to do things, but because of a lack of self-confidence, self-value, whatever, right? It could have been learned, it could have been hammered into them, it could have just been something they came across or whatever. They don't believe that they can do it themselves, right? Unless somebody does it for them or gives them this thing or whatever, they're not going to be able to do it, okay? Which is pretty difficult in the self-defense and martial arts world, because nobody can learn how for you to protect yourself against a killer, because then they would be trained and you still wouldn't be. It's not the same as, like, wishing you had $1 million and when Aunt Minnie dies, and I hope that she wills me $1 million. But anyway, so this is really tied to self-doubt or a sense of scarcity, right? Not enough to go around in the world, and all these fucking conceited and manipulative and corrupt motherfuckers in the world, taking everything, and so there's not enough to go around, and that's why I don't have anything, or I'll never have anything, because these people never think about the fact that we all don't want the same things, and maybe, just maybe, there's enough to go around for everybody. Not the same things, but good thing we all don't want the same things. We all aren't looking for the same answers. We're all not trying to achieve, have achievements or success in the same areas, or whatever. Okay. So there's, again, self-doubt, sense of scarcity, where literally this person feels like they'll never be good enough, or they can't afford to invest in themselves, or somebody's always out to get them. not so much in that direction, but they're not getting them personally. They're just, they've rigged the game. Right? Is that saying that those kind of people aren't out there? No, but this person leads off. My parents were this way, right? Always wanted to do things. Next year we're going to go to Disney, guys, and every year we heard the same thing. Never went. I went to Disney. Well, I took my daughters myself. Okay, it's not about Disney, not about anything, and I don't want to hear about politically motivated whatever. I get it, right? I stay in the know as well. Right? However, it was about they said these things to present themselves a certain way, but they never believed that they could do it. And that came out when they were angry or scared or frustrated or whatever. Okay, you can always there's two times when someone's facade drops, and you will see what's at the heart of the struggle and what's in the way of success. And one is when they're afraid, and the other one is when they're angry. So I don't secure or I don't make long-term determinations about relationships, whether they're business relationships. I told my wife this early on, right? Or friendships or anything like that. I told her, she even started hinting in the direction of marriage or whatever, or even long-term boyfriend, girlfriend kind of things. Yeah, no, I need to see under two conditions. I told her, and she said, "Why would you make me angry or make me afraid?" I'm not going to do that. Not intentionally, anyway. I'm not going to do that. But I do need to see you in those conditions, especially when we're both involved, right? Because that's when I'll know whether you're a team player, with us being the team, or you're going to go into escape mode and run off, leaving me to handle the problem, or you're going to throw me under the bus, letting me get run over by the problem in order to save yourself. Okay. And since a marriage is a partnership that allows people a greater advantage at handling struggles and producing success, I've covered this in the past. I have to know whether this person is on my possibility list or my exclusion list, because successful people operate by the principle of exclusion, right? Because not everything will get you where you want to go, no matter how nice it is. Okay. So next is the animal realm, right? So animal realm people are they're in survival mode, right? This is instinctive stuff. They get up in the morning, they go to work or not, right? Come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, wake up the next morning and every other fucking morning until they die, doing the same thing. The vacation, they either vacation in the same spots or they vacation in the same places that fit the same budgetary standards, because they don't do anything to change their condition up or down. So the choices are always in the same thing, right? They're always battling the elements. They're always, right? Like I said, this is survival mode. So these folks in this realm are too overwhelmed by daily demands to focus on any long-term growth, right? And you'll hear it. You'll hear them say it. How you doing? Same shit, different day. It's the same. Okay. You can read people by just listening to the comments. Okay. If you know what you're listening for. And then finally, we have the hell realm, which is exactly what it sounds like, except that it's not just them in hell. They're also helping other people join them. Okay. So this is a person who is all of these realms are products of their karma, right? Decisions, right? We design our lives with the power of our choices. And that includes people we choose to surround ourselves by or walk away from, or things we choose to learn, study, mindful, all these kind of things, right? But when it comes to like really bad, painful, negative karma, this is even worse than the animal realm. Okay. So animal realm people are typically either always defensive or they're always fucking angry. Why is it the people that have all the freaking answers for solving the problems of the world and try to come across as enlightened and whatever, we're always so pissed off, right? I'm accepting of all people and diversity and all that kind of stuff, except for those people, and those people, because they all piss me off and they should be fucking murdered. That's really weird. Well, it's karma, because we can present ourselves a certain way, but those deep beliefs that I am God. See, this is not the God realm thing, but it can mirror it, right? And so I ultimately get to decide what's right and what's not, and right, tell people what to do and those kind of things. And when they don't, then I get pissed off, right? Or when people call me on mistakes that I've made, then I go defensive, right? That kind of thing, right? So again, anger, defensiveness. This is where someone's energy is consumed by reacting to everything from perceived threats, past trauma, other people, or people they think they have control of, not what do you call it? Not complying, those kind of things, right? Remember I talked about the martial arts instructors, need to have a sense of confidence, and I talked about the complacency ones where the students catch up and then they're leaving, but they're ruled by this belief that where the hell's the loyalty? Okay, that's they can present themselves one way, but if you're not loyal, if you don't just hang on their every word, whatever, right? I think all students should have a healthy sense of doubt. Okay. That doesn't mean that they need to be calling the teacher on everything or whatever, but they also shouldn't be blind followers. So if something doesn't compute, they should speak up. Right. And there might be a best way to do that or whatever. As long as they're not being, an asshole about it, they should be able to speak up and express that, based on my experience, that's not how how a fight happens or whatever. Can you help me out with this misunderstanding? Right. And so this is just like the people that, that's not the way fights happen. I wouldn't work on a fight, whatever. Okay. Well, I understand that they probably have a pretty limited experience with fighting, if that's what they believe, or they've never been outright attacked by somebody. And if either case is true, that they've been in lots of fights or they've been attacked by people, then their experience of what a fight is like is they're just carbon copies of each other. They should thank their lucky fucking stars that nobody's ever kind of, walked up behind them and tried to stick a sliver of steel into their kidney or at the base of their spine or whatever. Okay. Nobody grabs a wrist. Nobody. Okay. I understand that your experience has led you to believe this, but that's in your realm and your circle. The fact that it's never happened to you doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. The number one question on YouTube for people looking up self-defense answers is, how do you defend against somebody grabbing your wrist, grabbing your clothing, So if grabbing doesn't happen in a goddamn fight or an attack, why the hell is that the number one question asked by people who are looking to learn self-defense for free on YouTube? And that's not hard to look up. Okay? Start typing in, you go to YouTube. YouTube will tell you exactly what the most searched questions are. If you type in how to defend against, you don't even have to get that far, and it'll have a drop down window that pops down for suggested endings. We all know what that looks like, right? It's suggestive search, right? All those things that are listed are the top ones. Okay, go ahead and enter how to defend against a grab, and it'll add things to the end of that. The most important or the most searched things are at the top. Then it goes down from there. Right. So it's not difficult to find in today's world. Right? But either way. Right. So again, just another quick reference, right? A person in the human realm, right, might start martial arts because they see it as a path to personal growth, while someone in the hungry ghost realm might want to train but tell themselves they don't have the time or the resources or they're, they got to get in shape first, or they're too old, or whatever. Name something. Okay. And all of them have this same kind of idea. Right. So I'm just going to jump into this next thing. Okay. So, looking at the realms in real time, right? Again, going back to this layered mandala kind of thing. Okay. So, imagine that each realm, right, let's look at each realm as a different kami, right? Um, the cool thing is that we have these things and we look at them. At least my teachers taught me this, and so my students get this, right? Their introduction to the kami is based on psycho-emotional states that are brought up based on the context of the situation, how they feel about the attacker or what they're worried about, and things like that, right? So some of these things are going to cause us to shift into and out of these kami, depending on, right, the situation, right? And so we might start off feeling like, whoa, 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 I don't want any trouble. Okay, so we're off in this hira or hoko kind of position or whatever. We're just, whoa, hey, 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 right? And then, this guy throws something and I might stay there, or based on the situation and the environment, I might go from here to kind of this water-like defensive kind of thing, because shit, that's coming in fast and hard and I need to move away. I need space, I need time, that kind of thing. And then I tag this guy and, right, knock that arm away, and you can see the look in his face where he just like, yeah, right. I picked the wrong guy. And in that moment, we might just, right, we're in Jumonji or Kosei, and we're taking the freaking fight to him, right? And then we might knock this guy down, and he's just curled up in a fetal position, hoping the wind will do something else. And we just stand over him and Chizen like, you done? Okay. It's easy to see how these things can shift and change, right? We might be listening to somebody describe how to do something, or watch the teacher, doing something. We're standing there in Shizen, and we're thinking about this, we're nodding, right? Very earth-like, very, oh yeah, okay, yeah, looks pretty easy, right? Next thing I know, I get that hanbo in my hand, and I try to do this thing, and I'm just all fucking twisted up, and like, oh shit. And so now I'm confused, and now I'm in this state where I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone, those kind of things, right? So who knows, depending on the personality type, right? I could be in a hell realm kind of thing where now I'm getting angry, or I'm getting frustrated, or whatever. Okay. Again, the realms are the same way. Okay. They're not fixed, right? And they can change. They can change within a single day. When I say realms, I mean the way we are being, right? Change the single day, they change the situation, right? We might feel empowered and confident at work, right? That's human realm. Okay. I feel capable, able. I might be working toward that next promotion, or that bonus, or whatever that's going on, right? I might be trying to learn the job better because I want to be much more efficient, right? I want to learn this job and get better at this because, right, this is making how many more dollars an hour at this than I was at my last one, which means I can now invest in myself, or I can improve my family's condition, that kind of thing. Or I just might feel confident that, yeah, I took a pay cut on this, or this is going to be a struggle for some of us who started businesses and whatnot, right? But when I get things together, right, I've got more adaptability with my schedule, let's say, or I dictate how far I can go, or I'm working toward being an expert in this realm, right? Got to be an expert at something, and I'd rather be an expert at this than couch surfing and network or Netflix binging, or whatever, right? And so, but we could be this, right? So we're empowered and confident at work or doing whatever we do. But again, just like I mentioned earlier, right, we could end up being overwhelmed by family responsibilities, which is the animal realm, because that's survival mode. I'm going home and I'm just getting through the rest of the day till she and the kid, and this wasn't me, right? Because my kids always knew they could come and get a hug and all that kind of stuff. So my overwhelm wasn't there. And they can still ask for a hug, even though they're all grown up. But again, this is animal realm, right? Because it's survival mode, right? Or we could be defensive in social situations, right? That's the hell realm, because we're worried about what other people think of us, or we're playing the whole. We could be into an Ashra realm, or I'm sorry, battling Titan, jealous gods realm, or whatever, where we think we're the shit, but we get into a social situation and we realize, as one student did, who was a shodan, who I took to Japan a bunch of years ago. He was asked to not come back when we came back, but first class before it even got started. He's walking around and he's mingling, and me, I was just starstruck, right? Just going around and introducing himself to all these people who consistently made YouTube videos and whatnot, and taught lessons. While he was introducing himself and shaking their hand, oh, I've always wanted to meet you. Oh, you're good, that kind of thing, right? But he went from that to, he got through everybody, and then got nervous. And walked up to me and said, there's a lot of Dai Shihan here. I looked at him and I said, did you really think that as a shodan, you were going to come to Japan and come to Hombu Dojo, headquarters dojo, for Bujikan International, and be one of the highest ranking students in the room? And while picking at his fingers, which he was apt to do a lot when he was nervous, trying to not show it, nodded. Yes, it was a nervous nod. And it was the moment I began to piss him off, because he ended up in the hell realm for most of the trip. And that's when I looked at him and said, what, some kind of moron or what? That's really what you think? He really thought he was going to come to Japan as a black belt, as a shodan, and be one of the highest ranking people in the room. And then he was more pissed off because when we line up to bow in or bow out of class, we line up Daishian up front, leaning all the way back too. And as a shodan, he sat back with the colored belts. That really pissed him off. So, again, expectations, all kinds of things, right? So, but it's not just about the realms. It's not just about us. It's where are we? Which realm are we predominantly operating in these different life situations, right? Are we in a different realm with our significant other than we are when the whole family's there, right? Are we different at work when we're operating autonomously, right? Pretty much on our own, or when we have to work with certain people? Are we in a different realm when we're doing task work, or when we're in a meeting, or whatever, right? Which hobbies, which pastimes, whatever, right? There are these different things, okay? How do we relate to our own personal development? I'm sorry to say, but a lot of people are in the hungry ghost realm when it comes to their own personal development, because it's much easier to think that we're in the God realm, right? And we already got it, than to actually be working on stuff. Because a lot of folks, right? And when I say hungry ghost realm or the hungry spirit realm or whatever, right? That one that I can't do it for myself, right? The self-doubt that comes in, or the I'll never get this, right? I have had students over time that have stopped training because the next realm or the next level was going to require a shift in thinking and a shift um, in understanding about themselves, the world, the control that you could have in conflict or attacks or struggling situations or whatever. And they just determined that they either didn't need it, they didn't want it, that wasn't necessary, or since they couldn't understand it, they weren't willing to give it any kind of time. And so that's where their training stopped. That's where they're, and so I get it where the person might decide that, look, rank wise, because I train with somebody that is fucking phenomenal, and he decided that fourth dan is good. I'll stay here because you know what? I can learn everything I need to learn. I don't need to pass that single test over there that we work on in class all the time to get that rank to play that game. Right. But skill wise, shit. So anyway, but what the person who decides that they're going to stop, and they don't just decide it in their head, they decide it with actions, is right. I got my knee done. Okay. But for how long without continuous training and practice? We're going to do a Kuden coming up here in the near future, probably not until after the new year, but where we're going to talk about the difference between training and practice and knowing the damn difference. Okay? But how long will they still be of need on quality? Or whatever rank they believe that they are, right? Whatever that skill set is, before it just gets rusty and rusty and rusty. And so the person's need on in name only. Okay? So anyway, all right. So let me just see if there's any questions or anything like that before we wrap it up, because what I want to do is I want to take a look at, again, why some people, we're going to go through the realms, why people choose or avoid martial arts, just very, very quickly, through each of the realms. And then we'll take a look at some integration with a eye on overcoming struggles. And then we'll just kind of wrap this up with a quick little, just a couple of notes that I have here for seeing martial arts as a path through the realms. Okay. We'll see how that kind of goes. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but this life is not black and white, right? It's not ones and zeros. Okay. So let's see. Let me get back over here. Not that I need to see James, but James, are you still on? Awesome. Yes. Questions, comments? Did you have anything? Anything you want to throw on top of this? Anything that you've noticed coming out of, I don't know, your teaching class or two consistently on a regular basis? Any of this stuff resonate with you? Not necessarily about you, just as you've seen students come and go, and the interactions and things like that.
Dave said I worked with a teacher that decided fourth dan was good enough as well. He never wanted to go to Japan. He missed out on lots of great experiences.
There's some people that went to Japan a lot, got a lot of rank. I would put my fifth cues up against them. Not as a competitive thing. It's not a competitive thing. It's a comparison. Because I'm all about skill proficiency and ability to use things practically and under pressure. So not just how many kata do we know. And Hatsumi Sensei's taught on that for years. I don't care how many kata you know, and I don't care how good you are at it. I don't care how many historical facts you can regurgitate. Right? You need to talk to people that have actually been in bad places and survive those things, because while they may not be able to tell you how to correctly do a Seion or Shiaku or Tangeki or whatever, they're going to tell you how you better be training, because here's the reality of the world. And that person may have a black belt. They may have a Daishihan title. They may be a white belt. Right? It's not the rank that you want. It's the experience that they need to convey. Because the second best way of getting experience is to get it from somebody who's been there. Because one of my guys, James, Mike Guzik, one of the guys in the inner circle. At least it was the last time I looked. He could have changed it. But the last tagline I saw was learn from the mistakes of others, because you might not live long enough to learn from your own. Right. So 2 ways to get experience. Right. It's like 2 ways to get respect, through admiration or through fear. And Shinoshi Malmstrom would say, take what I can get. So anyway, what else? What else? Anybody else?
Merrill just said this is very insightful.
Oh, cool. All right. And I appreciate that, but nothing will be done with it until it goes from insightful to imperative. And as long as we're comfortable, ain't happening. So, if it does happen, it won't be for very long, because some people, there's a personality type on there, right? And if you've been listening, you know which one it is, who will start the process of working with it to prove me wrong. Because I said they won't if it's not imperative. Well, imperative takes on a whole bunch of different things. Okay. To always win, right? The battling titans, the jealous gods, competitiveness, to always win. That's just another way to say to prove somebody wrong, to always be right. Right? It's the same. Okay. So don't take things literally. You'll miss the point. Okay? It's kind of like learning the kata, but missing the science behind controlling an aggressive individual in a certain direction. Okay. How do I discern his intentions, energy, force, that kind of stuff, neutralize the force of his attack, prevent him from continuing on the way he originally intended, and either take him down, get him to go away, or lock him up, or whatever, right? Restrain him, and then determine what, if anything, is the next move, is the next thing that needs to be done. Right? That's our 5Ds framework, because that's the principles in every kata. I don't care how many moves it has. Okay? You're either in discernment stage or phase. You're in neutralizing the force, right? Ukemi, right? Or you were in unbalancing, confusing, mentally, physically, right? Unbalancing comes in a whole bunch of different things. Unbalancing is preventing the person from going on to being able to get at you, right? Fighting you, attacking you, to dealing with inertia, gravity, right? His collapsing body, right? A broken piece of him, whatever. He can't get at you the way he wants to. And then tying him up, knocking him down, or whatever, right? It's taking the fight to him, right? That's the delivery of your techniques, right? And then discerning and assessing what comes next. Just because the kata runs out of ink and words doesn't mean the fight's over, right? So what's next? Is he running off? Is he unconscious? Is he, down and broken and moaning? Is he getting back up and 2 of his friends are joining in? What's next? Right? These are the principles, and they don't match up as steps. They're phases that every engagement goes through. As long as we're still focusing on the kata as kata, we're missing the point, and that's probably why our sparring in randori looks completely freaking different from the kata. Because there's a disconnect between learning the models and just fighting and throwing a bunch of basics together. Not that they don't work, but the masters didn't pass down, here's some moves, throw them together any way you want. It's not what they passed down. They passed down a science for controlling the bubble. Okay. So anyway, anything else, James?
No, sir, not right now.
All right. All right. So let's bring this to a successful end, shall we? All right. So very quickly, let's use the realms here as a reference. And this is going to be I think more important to those of you who are instructors or group leaders or want to be or can see yourself maybe as you're continuing on to do that, because one of the top reasons that people tell me that they want to train and earn their black belt or do whatever in this art is they'd like to teach, whether it's other people and help other people to be able to protect themselves and whatnot, or they want to be able to teach their kids or pass this stuff down to their kids and their grandkids and stuff as whatever. Okay. So, but I think it's important to understand that people come to the training for their own reasons. And I see self-defense is a vague reason. Right? What are they most important, or what are they most worried about? Okay. And each one of these realms has a reason to either engage or avoid. Okay. So let's very quickly take a look at a quick pass through why people choose or avoid martial arts. Okay. So, well, here's a question, right? Have you ever wondered why some people are drawn to martial arts while others avoid it, or why some quit after a really short time while others make it a lifelong pursuit? Why some come in like, I wouldn't have started if I wasn't going to make this a long-term thing, and then within a class or 3 or a month or 3 or whatever, they're gone. Right. So again, right, just it's the same for us as it is for every other human being. Right. Our current mindset or realm can influence how you see martial arts and whether it feels like a solution, a challenge, or a waste of time. Okay. Solution to what? Well, if we could see that either, we could see that there's a problem, right? So I don't know how to handle a dangerous person. Okay. That's okay, but it's still really vague. Okay. See, depending on how we see how fights are and how they happen, or attacks are and how they happen, or, what kind of things might we have to deal with, right? We're not being specific enough. Okay. And this is where a lot of people start to drop off, right? Because they believe, right? Because there's a card in there, how I see martial arts, or how I see danger in the world, or how I see solutions for danger in the world, right? It's all kinds of these things, right? So it's way more than 52 cards in the mandala deck. Okay. But people will become satisfied at a certain level because they can handle the types of situations that they think they should, or they wanted to have a black belt in ninjutsu, so they learned the requisite techniques and they can do them well, and they got the rank. Done. Goal accomplished. Okay. Again, if we come at it from the human realm, it's if you keep an eye on the news or hear people tell stories about how attacks happened, or realize that not all attacks or not all dangers that martial arts and self-protection training can protect us from are human based. Could be a rabid dog attack. It could be, I don't know, your car sliding on ice and going off a fucking cliff in the middle of winter and rolling down, and the only thing that saved your ass was ukemi and a pre-established escape plan from a car in a certain position, and the ability to process and do the MacGyver thing in creating a solution to get out of the damn car before it broke free from the thing that snagged it, to continue rolling down the hill and leaving it in a condition where everybody that saw it wondered how the fuck I survived that. Oh, I'm sorry, that was about me. So can we paint it into a different form or a different structure? would certainly keep people from going, I don't like rolling. I don't like ukemi. That's why I don't practice it. Okay. Well, the universe, me, and your attacker don't give a shit. And you might need ukemi to survive a car rolling off a cliff. Well, when would I drive a car off a cliff? I didn't drive the car off the cliff. Anyway. All right. So, so very, just here's some contrast. Right. So, God realm. Okay. Why train? Nothing will happen to me. Jealous gods. I want to win tournaments and prove that I'm the best. Human realm. Martial arts can help me grow as a person. Hungry ghost. I'd love to, but I'm not strong. I'm not fast, and I'm not disciplined enough. And I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. And anyway, I just added some extra stuff to that. Right? Just make sure you're paying attention. Animal realm. I'm too busy surviving to think about self-defense. Right? I mean, if somebody's going to get me, there's nothing I can do about it. Right? Hell realm. I need to protect myself, but I don't trust anyone to teach me. There you go. Well, that's a that's a problem anyway, right? Okay, so so let's take a look at a little bit of integration and overcoming struggles. Okay, so what I really want to do here is give you some actionable kind of tips, ideas, suggestions, that kind of thing, so that you can recognize and overcome limiting mindsets, things that cause struggles. Right. So if you're in the God realm, right? If you really do think that you learned everything you can about a technique, or you're at a pretty decent level and stuff, or whatever's causing the complacency, right? That the injury or the I don't know. I'm good with what I have, that kind of thing, right? Um, Try challenging yourself to imagine a worst case scenario and how you'd handle it. In your mind, we all know one that we have, right? What would be a holy shit? I don't know if I can handle that. Maybe that might break it, because that forces us into the human realm. Anytime we ask a question, right? Even if it's a simple one, like one of the exercises I give my students that are on the personal development track is to take any belief and ask why 5 times. And I don't mean why. I mean, you ask why. Okay, why do I believe that? Okay, how does it serve me? That kind of thing. You don't have to use the word why itself, but how does that serve me to get where I'm going? Anything like that. And then we'll get an answer, and then ask again. Right? Why is that true? Why do I believe that that's true? Okay. What proof do I have that that's whatever? Okay. Eventually you'll get down to a level where frustration will force out the real answer. Okay. If you're stuck in the animal realm, like I don't have time, right? I'm just working on, I'm just day-to-day stuff, right? Start with small manageable steps, like just doing 1 class a week or short home practice sessions. I suggest this to people. As a matter of fact, I did a presentation at a conference in Baltimore once for a medical education conference. And one of the problems that came up, they wanted somebody to teach on meditation, but could I do it, or could I give doctors and these medical professionals a way to do it when they didn't have the time to meditate? So what they're thinking is like 20-30 minute duration meditation, which has its benefits, right? But within our practice, we have things that you can do in 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And it has a different effect on the mind, but it's still a doable kind of thing. I call it my rapid reset and recharge program. It's a really, really cool thing. It comes right out of our Mikkyo practice. But I tell people, look, I don't care if you're at work, you're at home, or whatever. You go to the bathroom, right? If you can freaking flip through your phone a little bit while you're doing your business, right? You can certainly walk in and take 30 seconds, do a couple of ichimonji, do an ichimonji no kata, do one part of the sanshin, right? 3 times, whatever on each side, do your business, do something else on the way out, do a ski, do a whatever, right? And then go about your business, right? You may find that if you do that regularly in these small increments, you're actually training the same amount of time or more than the person who goes to class consistently twice a week, but doesn't freaking practice when they're outside the dojo. Okay. So, again, you can play around with these different things, right? So if I find myself in the, I'm the competitive guy who's, comparing myself to everybody else in the dojo and stuff. Okay. Why don't I just try comparing myself to the instructor? How close is my movement to his or hers? Which is actually, coincidentally, the shu realm of training. In the shuhari, shu means to copy or preserve. You don't get to do anything else until your movement mirrors your teachers. Yeah, but what if they're not like perfect yet? Doesn't matter. If you can't do it the way they can do it, it doesn't matter. And if you doubt that they're actually any good, why the fuck are you training with them? Well, it's the closest dojo to my house or to work. And well, okay, then you see, I'm willing to train as long as it's comfortable and easy. We're right back in the God realm. Okay. So play around with these things all you want, but by understanding which realms dominate your thinking, you can choose actions that align with your long-term goals instead of your immediate emotions. Okay. Controlling your emotions isn't about stifling them. It's about redirecting your energy in a different direction, because as soon as you begin to intellectually plan, process, and act mindfully, your emotions, the sting and the overwhelm that pushes you in a given direction, in a habitual direction, eases up. It loosens up. Okay. Just like people that are, they're not very emotional at all, right? They're more like freaking machines. They're more mental, intellectual, always thinking, that kind of thing, right? They need to go get involved in things where the adrenal system and whatnot can kick in, and they're wrapped in an experience, right? Go to an amusement park, go to a comedy show, go run around with, a bunch of kids, whatever, right? Where now the emotions are going to rule, right? And so now you're in the experiential realm. You're feeling, you're connecting with things and people and experiences in a very, very different way, because there's too much coming in, too much happening for the person to be intellectual. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, that's why randori training, which is kind of a controlled state of sparring, but it's generally not the same, is really, really important, where you can, in a controlled environment, you can even do little drills or whatever where the movements are the same, but you can keep jacking up the speed, or you can have a partner change up the timing of which the next move will happen or whatever. So it forces the person out of the mind, looking for the next thing at the same. It's kind of like having a recording CD, or for those old guys, right, the old cassette tapes and stuff like that, or a record or whatever, where the songs on the album or the songs on the disc or whatever were always in the same order. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this or not, but I've got favorite artists, so I play something, and it wouldn't take very long for me to go through that, and whether I did it out loud or I'd be singing in my head or whatever, going along with the song, and then the song fades away, and then there's a little bit of emptiness, there's a little bit of void before the next song starts. But in my head, because they're in the same order, in my head, the next song begins before it actually starts playing because you have it memorized. This is a problem with trying to learn languages from recorded stuff where you don't have them plugged into like a randomizer kind of thing. What'll happen is you end up learning it in a memorized way, but you haven't crossed over to being able to have a conversation with somebody because conversations are fluid regardless of how fluent you are. It's very different, right? So, or breaking away from kata and doing variations and things like that, where something's always different. To make sure my students that are heading for Nidan, which is the minimum level for me to believe that they can use taijutsu alone without something else, without falling back on wrestling or boxing or whatever they did before, right? Against the average attacker, right? Not some killer, not whatever. Okay. Single attacker, unarmed on the street, doing whatever that person wants. One of the things that I'll do to somebody that's a candidate for that is I'll tell somebody else, like I'll tell one of the other black belts, I'm looking at this person for this thing. So every once in a while, like, can you work with them? And then every once in a while, when you guys are training, can you throw the wrong attack? Can you change the speed up? Right? Because I want to see if, even though we're working on a technique, even though there's a certain outcome or I've demonstrated something or whatever, their default is always to avoid and maintain a distance that's too far away for the next thing. So neutralize this person's ability to get at them. As a minimum, right? They're willing to throw away whatever we're working on to avoid and they stay within taijutsu, right? Because that's a necessary piece and a necessary step. Okay? Oh, tricky sensei. Yeah, they're not going to do it for themselves. They can't. You can't think about making a mistake because you've already generated the conditions. So, right? It's like, everybody's going to learn. Well, I don't need a teacher. I'll just learn everything off of YouTube. Really? Who's going to help you learn the things that you don't think about needing because we have our own little bubble that we operate from, which is based on our prior experience? Here's a brain twister, brain teaser, I guess, right? My first experience with Mikkyo was my teacher defining reality. Reality, your reality, is based on what you have learned and experienced. And without alteration, will in turn determine what you will learn and experience. He didn't put that middle piece in, so I'll just say what he said. Reality is based on what you have learned and experienced, and will in turn determine what you will learn and experience. So once your reality is established, left unchecked, you'll just stay in that bubble. Okay? That's why we keep going back to the human realm, because once you learn that and know it, and then begin to properly apply it, things won't be the same. Okay? Growth happens by doing things differently, by paying attention to things differently, and by recognizing that things are never the same, even the same things. Okay. Let's wrap this up here. Okay. So, martial arts as a path through the realms. Okay. So let's take a little look at reframing martial arts training as a tool for navigating and transcending the realms. Okay. We're going to look at the realms in sets of 2, and we're going to assign them to the 3 bodies or the 3 aspects of ourselves. Okay. So physical training, right? Physical training builds resilience and confidence. Okay. Actually, this one actually has 3 in it. So this is the animal, the hell, and the hungry ghost realm. Okay. Resilience allows the person to break free of that hell realm because they're not stuck in one way to do things. And when people or themselves can't do it or won't do it or whatever, the way they think it's official and should be done, they don't get pissed off. They don't get lost. They don't get defensive, those kind of things, right? Resiliency and confidence, right? That's handles the hungry ghost realm where they learn that they can do things for themselves. As soon as you recognize that you can do things for yourself and you start applying that, you're no longer in that realm anymore. Okay. And the resilience, as in figuring out ways to make things happen, even if it's in small steps or small increments or whatever, right? And the confidence that you can do things even when your situation seems overwhelming or it's too bogged down or whatever, right? That's the animal realm. Okay. We can get out of those things. Okay. Mental discipline, right? Mental discipline develops focus and adaptability, right? This handles jealous God's realm, and it works within the human realm. Okay. So the developing of focus and adaptability for the jealous God's realm is recognizing that, one, you're driven by competition and or a need to win or be better or whatever, and that's fine, right? So how do we frame that in the way that that's of service to others, right? So I was this way a long time ago. So this is where, if you ever hear me say that, one, you can do pretty much anything to me you want, but if you come at my family, right, there's going to be one less empty mine shaft in the region in which we live. So I need to be best for them. Okay. I need to have a certain skill set. I need to be adaptable because we never know what kind of situation. We're travelers. So where might we be? What are the problems? Those kind of things, right? My need to be an expert at this stuff, right? Also came out of hungry ghost realm. There's all kinds of stuff that was in there, but now, right, to settle for less than the best that I can be, and having my skill proficiency and whatnot to be the best that I can be. And I know I'm coming up on 62. I'm fat, whatever. Okay. But to, again, anybody that thinks about those things as being limiters and whatnot is thinking about competitive sports. Okay. Anything less than best that I can muster, right, is shorting my family and anybody else that I choose to be able to defend. Okay. Me stopping or being complacent, right? So that kind of chokes out the God realm as well. Right? And then spiritual insight, right, fosters clarity and compassion. So that handles the God realm and the human realm. Okay. The clarity for the God realm is you need to look around, right? You think you don't need it. Okay. You only have to be able to answer one question. What is the one? And this is not for you guys because you all train, right? Obviously, you wouldn't be on this podcast. But anybody that ever comes at you with that God realm kind of thing, right? Here's one question. Right? What is one thing that at least 95% of all victims throughout time have in common? They don't know each other. They've never met. They're not related. Whatever. They, some are alive, some are dead. Whatever. What is the one common denominator that almost all victims have or had? Up until the moment they were attacked, they didn't believe it would happen to them, or at least in that moment or situation, they never thought it would happen to them. Okay. And again, adaptability, that kind of thing, right? So we come up with new ways to do things. Compassion, right? Who am I doing it for? That kind of thing. So I can see myself in all of these, but at the same time, my default mode is the human realm, right? Which is the only realm that one can attain enlightenment from, because it's the one where you are assessing, adjusting, putting things in its proper place. As soon as you start exploring these things, right, you're in the human realm, right? You're not led by your habitual tendencies. And the more often you are in any given state, condition, whatever, that which you do the most, you are, right? You are always the product of that which you do the most. The thoughts you have, the way you communicate, speak, write, whatever, okay? And the way you act. Okay. That includes facial microexpressions and all kinds of things. Right? So Ninjutsu specifically, right, as a practice, addresses all dimensions of the human experience. This is that total training thing that I let off with. This is the other half of the training. This is not extra stuff added on, or like the side effect that a lot of martial arts kind of convey philosophy and stuff like that with. Like it's 90% technique. And then, oh, by the way, right, you'll learn humility. You'll learn to be more confident. Those are side effects, right? Those are bonuses for sticking with the practice. This is active engagement. Every skill, every technique, every mindfulness thing that we do or whatever is the same as a kata. It's the same. Needs to be learned, needs to be practiced, needs to be explored, needs to be mastered, and then it needs to be transcended because you don't need to do it anymore because it's inside. You own it, right? So this is the whole thing, okay? So unlike sport-oriented martial arts, Ninjutsu teaches not just how to fight, but how to see the world clearly, how to adapt to challenges, and how to maintain balance across all areas of life. Right? So let me just close out with this, and then we'll take some questions and comments, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay. Whether you see yourself in one realm or in many, the path forward is the same. Trinity mentioned part of this earlier. Self-awareness, deliberate practice, and the courage to step out of your comfort zone. Okay? Martial arts, especially the way this stuff is and has been passed down, isn't just about self-defense. It's a way to reclaim your inherent, universal, birth-given power and the ability to live with purpose across every dimension of your life. And I know for some people, right, hell realm, hungry spirit, animal realm, that's going to sound woo-woo as all hell. But until we start recognizing that we are habits that we just continue to nurture by continuing to do the same things the same way all the time, thoughts, words, same focus on the same things that we think are important technique wise or whatever, okay, actions, whatever, okay. When I say habits, I mean they all have the same stink or the same uselessness or whatever, right? They help us navigate our world, but they don't change our world. You can't grow by doing the same shit the same way, okay? They're pretty much the same as biting your nails. I know nails grow differently, or you start with a different finger, or it's still the same thing, okay? And I've used this analogy in the past. I'm going to finish up with this one. You may have heard me say this. You may not have. However, if a weak man wants to get strong, he goes to a strong man, and that strong man will give the weak man his routine. Okay? So a weak man uses the routine of a strong man because that's the routine that got him there. But for that strong man to get stronger, he will need a different routine because the routine he has will only maintain what he has. He has to change the routine to change the level of growth. In this case, muscle, but it's no different. Okay. All right. So let's wrap this up. James, questions, comments, complaints from you, from anybody else? I got broad shoulders.
Greg checked in from Australia.
Awesome. Hey, Greg.
Mike over on YouTube said, "Thank you, sir. Looking forward to listening with you in the future."
Awesome. Where are you from, Mike? I'm from YouTube, Sensei. He said it already. Sensei's an ass. Yep.
Trinity said, using the term comfort zone can be confusing sometimes. It's hard to recognize we have a comfort zone when we are uncomfortable all the time. Change can be scary, but better to suffer for the sake of it, escaping suffering than to suffer knowing you'll continue to suffer for nothing.
That's a really, really good point. There have been studies and things like that where they've asked like people who've suffered abuse and stuff like that, right? Where if you follow their relationships back, like different face, different name, but the situation's the same. It's like they give up, they get away from one abuser for another one, right? And they know that the other person led them on with like compliments and all that kind of stuff, and then it turns into this other thing. And the question is always, why didn't you just find somebody that acted differently? Because the evil that you know is sometimes more comfortable than the unknown, than the positive that you don't know, right? Not only did they choose the same person in a different face, different name, different body, but they didn't have to change up their skill sets because now they knew what to expect. And they just got really good at letting the bruises heal mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever. Hoping, right? So that's a habit too. Hoping for. Interesting stuff. Okay. Again, I'm going to recommend, and you should be able to find this free now because I'm sure a bunch of people have pirated it and put it on YouTube. Find What the Bleep Do We Know? Okay. This is not just a mental thing. Your habits, these things are that they have. This is not just this nebulous thing. They have caused neural pathways to grow in your brain. Right? We call it the click-whir response, us old guys, because back in the day, you click a button on a teletype kind of thing, right? And then the computer, that everything was on magnetic tape. You've seen all the old movies and shit, right? And so we'd have this click-whir as the computer found the piece of data or subroutine to run, right? So it's here's the impulse, you just run the routine, right? So but it's not, it doesn't just stop there, okay? Especially when emotions are involved. Your brain secretes these things called peptides. Peptides are chemicals that plug into every single cell that you have that change your state, okay? The things you do most often are easiest to do. Like tonight, James knows, right? We put a hanbo in somebody's hand. He's done a little bit in classes and whatnot, but put one in his hand, and it's pretty much the same with all new techniques because of all the martial arts experience he's had and whatnot, right? The muscles defaulted to the other thing. What do you say tonight, James? We don't need to name names, but what do you say? This is different. This feels weird. This feels really, really odd. Yeah, remember that? Okay. Yep. And I said, it's because you've never done it before. Your muscles aren't wired for it. So yeah, of course it's going to feel like. So every time you hear yourself go, well, that's not me. Well, no shit. But if you were more like that, could you produce results faster? Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, if it's not a no, it's worth exploring. Okay. So Of course, it's going to feel weird. It was not me. This is not the way I would do it. Well, if you already know how to do all this stuff, why the hell are you in my class? Okay. If it's weird, it means that your brain wiring and your muscle stuff is not geared to do that maneuver, which means you're not as free with your movement as you think you are. Freedom of movement means you can do anything, but you just simply think about it or need it and you can do it. Right. But that's not the way skills work. Right. So, but what I'm talking about are these peptides. They plug into your cells. There are docking. I'm being very, very amateurish, very super simple about this, but there are docking ports on your cells that these things plug into. Okay. When your habits set in and you're the same way for a length of time, you ever notice how things get easier? The reason it gets easier, I'm speaking on the emotion side, but this is for all habits. The reason it gets easier is because when your cells subdivide, welcome to middle school or junior high science. When your cells subdivide, those new cells, when it splits, that new cell is called a sister cell. It's not an exact clone. That used to be the way science explained that. It's not exact. When the sister cell is formed, there are more docking ports on that sister cell for the peptides that get you into the state that you're in most often. It's a survival mechanism. So if you're pissed off on a regular basis, as your cells subdivide, those sister cells have more docking ports for pissed off peptides. And so it's easier and faster for you to get pissed off. So that's why we have to practice the opposite things and other things so that as your cells subdivide, the sister cells have more and more docking ports so that hopefully we're hitting a point of neutrality where there's an equal amount. So it's easy to get into any state quickly. It's easy to get out of any state quickly. This is not just a mental exercise in woo-woo self-development bullshit. This is biological. This is biology, neurology, kinesthesiology, right? This is not. This is why I've always have a problem. I have to use certain keywords and tags online when I tag things because they're the search terms that people look for. But I have a real hard time with like martial arts philosophy and shit like that because that's like translating Ryuha. And people go, well, that's the Gyoko school. That's the school doesn't even come fucking close to meaning what this concept of Yu or Ryuha means in the context of classical Budo. Even Budo falls short when we're talking about this stuff that we're talking about. Right? It doesn't, I mean, it's you can use it as an expedient, but it doesn't even come close to meaning what this stuff is. It's been passed down. And without like really diving deep or being with a teacher who gets this stuff or whatever, you don't get to that kind of thing. Like, I don't need a teacher. I just learn this stuff for myself. Bullshit. What you're going to learn are some tricks and some moves, but this isn't practice for being able to dance okay at the upcoming prom. This stuff is not just about saving your ass when some jackwagon or three of his friends or whatever come at you to cut you up. This is about your life. And until we understand this, we'll never quite get the imperativeness behind the statement that practice wisely because your life depends on it. Not the one you're living, the one you want to be living. What else, James?
Jeffrey said, I like the earlier analogy of looking at a mandala like a deck of playing cards from the top down. It made a lot of things instantly click for me as to understanding what a mandala itself represents.
Ta-da! Look, you found your own card. No, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I love when things like that happen. Cool. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
Greg just said you won't be attacked every day, but you will live every day, and this art teaches you how to live.
Yeah. No, but you could be attacked every day. As long as you don't have your head wrapped around physical, right? We're assaulted every day. How many advertisements are pulling for your attention in your wallet? How many expectations do people have of you? How many rules, authority, whatever, right? Do you have to balance and negotiate and whatnot, right? So, well, I know, but it won't kill you. See, I mentioned this earlier, and I'm not sure if you were on when I said it. Okay. I think we did an episode recently about different ways to die, right? I think the episode was on 3 ways to die in the dojo, right? And what that really had to do with was like how you end up changing and becoming a different person. The old you has to die for the new person to be born, right? And every time you make a change, growth requires that 80% of who you think you are, habits and all that kind of stuff, have to be dropped. Like there's a core 20%, give or take, of you that will stay the same as you move along. But at every new level, 80% has to go. Right? We either have to understand it differently, we have to drop it because it's a limitation, whatever. Right? Okay. We cannot get there from here. Because if I could, I'd already be there. Anyway, so where was I going with that? Oh, the physical, mental, emotional kind of thing, right? Certain attacks, right? That often these things will manifest as regrets. Man, if I knew then what I knew, or then what I know now, I would have never, whatever, right? Asked that person to be my friend, or took that job, or whatever. Right? But if we stay in situations because we accept that that's the way they are, what died? A dream, personal power, freedom. Huh? This is about potential and freedom, not about trading out cages. And sometimes you're going to have to be unpopular. Heard a quote not too long ago that it was, you ever see those things when you're like skin just, get that goose flesh kind of thing. You're like, oh, yes. Right. My love and care for myself and my own sanity and self-protection is so important to me that I am willing to be the demon in your story. It doesn't make me a demon, but when you walk away from somebody who expected loyalty, compliance, whatever, even though they can do whatever the hell they want, whatever, right? And whatever the situation is, they're going to tell a story with you being the bad guy. Now, if you were, then you deserve it, and hopefully you'll change. But if you were doing it for growth, for sanity, for those kind of things, right? They're still going to tell a fucking story, and you're still going to be the bad guy. The question is, are you willing to be the bad guy? Because if you're not, none of this will ever help. you're not willing to give up habits, if you're not willing to give up certain levels of comfort, even temporarily, so that you can move back forward. And in all honesty, most people in the West are not. There's no dire need to change. If you lived in ancient Japan, probably, but you'd also have the fear that if you weren't born into the right caste and you stepped out of line, you'd lose your head. But then you wouldn't have any worries anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, we really do need to wrap this up. So, James, anything else?
No, that looks like it's it.
Cool. All right. Well, you guys know, if you have anything else, pop in the comments, shoot an email, whatever. Don't forget, we have our Daikomyo-sai, our New Year's kickoff seminar. Yes, pun intended. Coming up January 10th, 11th, and 12th. There are virtual options, and you can always train at the dojo. We have full weekend experience as an option. You can train for a single day. You can train for a single session. We have 5 sessions throughout the weekend, or you can mix and match. So some people, based on work schedule or whatever, or when they can get into town, whatever, right? You can do a day and a session, or you can pay for a day and do a session on one day and a separate session on another day, whatever. But the focus this year is on Togakure secrets. So besides Ninpo Taijutsu, we're going to be taking a look at some aspects of the Tonko no Jutsu, which is the concealment and escape, basically guerrilla warfare tactics of the Togakure ninja. We are going to be focusing on a couple of weapons as well. The Shinobi Katana. We're going to be focusing on kunai, shuriken, and shuko, right? And the strategies and secrets behind those things. Okay? And then I've got a couple of folks doing breakout sessions and whatnot. So it's gonna be a full weekend. And because this is our New Year's event, Sunday after lunch, but before the afternoon sessions begin, we have our annual New Year's Goma, goal setting, active meditation, active practice kind of thing. It's pulled from Mikkyo, but geared specifically to goal attainment, goal setting and achievement. I apologize. Where you actually act out all of the parts required to achieve a goal. You act out every part of it. Okay. With nothing but a stick and some small items, right? And a fire. I call it New Year's resolutions on steroids, but it's hard to forget. I have students that have gone through that kind of stuff and had no idea when they did it how they were going to accomplish that damn goal, and ended up on a mountain in Japan or whatever, right? Not instantly, right? It was just they went to Japan to train. I can see somebody going, wow, that was amazing. And also, if you're going to be in town for at least Saturday, if not the whole weekend, Saturday evening, we will be at a local restaurant. That's a pay-as-you-go kind of thing. That's not included in the tuition. For anybody that's staying, we will be having a celebration dinner celebrating late, obviously, because Hatsumi Sitsu's birthday just occurred. But we get through the holidays and whatnot, and everybody else and their brother is doing Daikomyo-sai at the same time. We do ours in January, so we will be celebrating his birthday, and coincidentally, mine is actually 2 days before the event starts. So, yeah, I'll get in on the action as well. So that's what we have. Okay, so hopefully you're in on it, and if not, no harm, no foul. Just keep your eye out. I've got a whole bunch of new emails coming, articles on the blog, all that kind of stuff. So keep the eyes out. And if you have any other questions, or you have any topics that you would like for us to cover on Kuden or as a part of Whiteboard Wednesday or anything like that, be cool. Okay. Whiteboard Wednesday this time around, because I'm in this little kind of different approaches, different realms kind of thing. We're going to break down the realms, the Godai, the elements, as responsive tactics. And then the Friday coaching call, I'm only going to do a technique or two, but we're going to do it with the strategy and tactical nuances of each of the elements. So it'll be like having 4 techniques for each one. It'll be cool. Well, I think it'd be cool. Who knows? Some weapons may slip in there as well. All right. That's it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'll talk to everybody again next time. Be safe, and see you next time on Kuden.
Get more of Kuden Radio, subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.